Will Brian Kelly ever turn the corner over at LSU? A lot of people think that this is the year that he's going to do it. We will dive into their schedule and we'll see about that, as the LSU Tigers definitely have a lot in front of them in 2025, and certainly trying to move forward off of an 8-4 campaign in the regular season a year ago. Hi, everybody. I'm Colin Bashnigel, your host here at the Bash's College Football Show. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you like a lot of college football content. Certainly subscribe and keep following, as we're going to be pumping out these previews. I'm hoping to have 3 more teams done in the next 36-ish hours, I want to say. So let's get through them. The LSU Tigers in 2024, they definitely showed flashes where they were obviously like a very talented team, could compete with anybody, but then they also had some disasters. So you look at like the USC game, week 1. Turns out USC was just a 500 football team within the Big Ten, not very good. In fact, they had a losing record in conference play a year ago. And the LSU Tigers end up dropping that game in Vegas. It's like, okay, alarm bells a little bit. And then LSU, they bounce back. They get a win against South Carolina that was pretty controversial. And then they lose again to Texas A&M, and you're like, all right, margin for error is not there. Then they lost to Alabama by, what was it, 42-13, I think was the final score. It was 42-6. They were stuck at 6 for a very long time. Things got a little bit ugly for LSU, to say the least, a year ago at times. And it makes me wonder, is Brian Kelly just, number one, does he not work in the modern day of college football? And number two, is he a fit down in Baton Rouge? Well, as we take a look at this LSU roster preview, we're going to talk about whether or not he has the tools to win. And I think that they do. When you look at this offensive line, there's going to be a little bit of question marks. Replacing left tackle Will Campbell, who entered the draft, that's going to be pretty tough. They have a pretty strong right tackle. Their O-line is, not going to be terrible. We already know that, but how good can they be? Can they be a national championship level offensive line? I know they have some national championship level talent at the quarterback position with Garrett Nussmeier. Right next to him or behind him, a lot of the time will be Caden Durham, who as a freshman looked like an absolute stud and looking to build off of a good start to a career. And we'll see if he can do just that. But they also have a ton of wide receivers to work with in tight end Bauer Sharp to go and try to throw the ball to. But the wide receivers, Aaron Anderson, Nick Anderson coming in from Oklahoma, Barian Brown coming in from Kentucky, Destin Hill coming in from Florida State. All of these guys are very talented, and I think that that's going to be a lot of good weapons for Garrett Nussmeier to use, especially because a lot of these guys are some deep speed guys, but they can create after the catch. Like when you watch Aaron Anderson and Destin Hill, they can create after the catch. Even Nick Anderson, to a certain extent, can do that. So the real question I have for Mr. Garrett Nussmeier is, we get it. You're a gunslinger. You can throw the ball deep. You make a lot of crazy throws that work out because you got a very strong arm. Can you be consistently accurate, specifically over the middle, setting up some of these wide receivers like Aaron Anderson, for example, to make some plays after they get the catch? That's going to be my question for Garrett Nussmeier this year. On the defensive side of the ball, you got to love what they have on the defensive line. You got Bro. I think you say it like Bro. I could be wrong there. On the defensive line, Patrick Payton comes in from Florida State. Who knows, by the way, how they're going to use Harold Perkins, because he's been used as a hybrid linebacker and edge rusher. I think they would be better off with him coming in as a linebacker and trying to get him in pressure situations through simulated pressures a lot. We'll see what Coach Baker back there wants to do on the defensive side of the ball in his second year. They also got a couple of really good linebackers, by the way. Whit Weeks is a really fun player to watch, and if you watch the SEC documentary, he was a fun player to listen to as well and keep track of him and his brother. Yeah, they definitely got a couple of good linebackers. You also got Keys back there. And then in the secondary, I mean, a little bit of question marks in that secondary. You have Mansour Delaney coming in from Virginia Tech as probably the number one corner. I think he's an NFL player. I've been very impressed watching him the last 2 years over at Virginia Tech. He did not look as good last year. He took a little bit of a dip, but I think he could be the type of guy to really help boost this secondary for sure. I think the secondary is definitely going to be improved. And I think this defense overall is going to be much improved. So as we look at this schedule here for the LSU Tigers, I'm just going to pop it up here. You can see that they start off obviously with Clemson. That's a hyped week one matchup on that opening Saturday. I mean, the week one this year is just insane. Notre Dame, Miami, Ohio State, Texas, LSU, Clemson. And then there are many more beyond that, like Alabama, Florida State, Georgia Tech, in Colorado, Auburn, and Baylor. Like there are really good games in week one. And it's so exciting. And LSU is going to be a part of that with the road trip to the other Death Valley, Clemson. Louisiana Tech should not be a problem. Florida obviously kicks off SEC play. If you're going to get Florida right now, you want to get them early in the season. Especially since DJ Lagway has not played a lot of football in the offseason. After SELA, they go on the road to Ole Miss, their first major conference road test, which, these two have had some really fun battles. If you remember 2 years ago, 55-49, back and forth between Jackson Dart and Jaden Daniels. And then last year, LSU pulled it off in overtime as the late Kyron Lacey made that game-winning catch. Rest in peace to Kyron. South Carolina off the bye at home. This was an incredible game a year ago. Vanderbilt is going to host LSU. That should be a fun game now. And then Texas A&M. Texas A&M is going to be a very tough team. I mean, I think that this is a really tough draw off the bye at Alabama. Obviously, Alabama is also off the bye. They play Arkansas and Western Kentucky at home before closing out at Oklahoma. And who knows how good Oklahoma is going to be. So we're going to go game by game and predict this. And we're going to start with giving them those 3 W's against those G5 or FCS opponents. Louisiana Tech, I mean, I'm just going to touch on these 3 games very, very quickly. Louisiana Tech, they're, to me, a little bit of a mess. They had a lot going on the defensive side of the ball, and then they lost their defensive coordinator, Jeremiah Johnson. So that progress they made on defense, it's gone. SELA, they're not a very good FCS program. Maybe in basketball they could beat LSU, not in football, because they were a pretty good basketball team last year. And then Western Kentucky, Western Kentucky is a very respectable group of 5 team, but they have not been able to, especially against these talented blue chip riddled rosters, been able to even compete. So I do not expect this to be a close game at all. So let's talk about that first game now with Clemson. And here's how I'm breaking it down. Are we overrating Clemson? Are we overrating LSU? Could we potentially be overrating both? I think there's a chance we are all overrating them both. There's a lot of question marks that they did not answer last year on the field that we're thinking returning production is just going to solve all the issues. Let's not forget that Clemson still doesn't leverage NIL in the transfer portal like a lot of these other schools. Let's not forget that this Clemson team is probably not going to have depth, but they're going to be able to have depth early in the season when LSU goes on the road to Clemson. That's what's going to make this a little bit tougher for the Clemson or for the LSU Tigers going on the road to Clemson. And, to me, it's going to come down to the experience at the quarterback position, the pressure on Brian Kelly to win the game. And I think Brian Kelly is going to be able to get his team up and ready to win this opening game. Me taking LSU in a season opener, it's not a good bet, but I'm going to take him right now to beat Clemson. I'm not very high on Clemson. I'm sure we're going to do a preview on Clemson. A lot more people are high on them. And don't get me wrong, I think they could very easily and probably should be a playoff team. But I definitely don't think that Clemson is this national championship contender that people are making them out to be. More on that when we do the Clemson video. When they play Florida off the Louisiana Tech game, it's sandwiched between two cupcakes. And again, I think you want to get Florida early in the season. DJ Lagway has not thrown a pass or has not thrown a lot of passes this offseason. And I think that this was crucial for his development. It's not like a diva situation, too. You know, if you understand who DJ Lagway is, you know that he's hard at work trying to be learning this offense, but there's a difference between learning an offense in an office, in a meeting room, and also applying it out to the field. Now, he does have two opportunities to do it in what you would call pretty much cupcake games for Florida, Long Island, and USF. But I still think this LSU talent is just going to be too much in Death Valley as well. I'm taking LSU to start off 4-0 after they beat Sela. Then they go on the road to Ole Miss, and I love Austin Simmons at quarterback. I think he could potentially be better, at least at the college level, than Jackson Dart, because a lot of times last year you saw in close games when your NFL, what ended up being first-round prospect, has the ball in his hands with the chance to win or tie the game up. How does he perform down the stretch? And against LSU last year, as well as against Florida and Kentucky, he didn't perform. Now, a couple years ago, he did perform when they did play LSU, and that was in Oxford. But I think LSU is going to get their lick back. I think at this stage, especially in late September, they're going to be a better team than Ole Miss. It's going to be a tough win. It's going to be a classic, another close game. It's gone to the home team the last 2 years. But this starting to really develop a pretty major rivalry over here. I got LSU going on the road and getting the job done. Off the bye week, they play South Carolina. South Carolina definitely is going to remember what happened a year ago. Lenora Sellers, he got injured in that game. They ended up finishing the game with Robbie Ashford, had a pick six that they end up calling an illegal blindside block with that took the ball all the way back. Actually, I'm trying to remember exactly how that went, but I know it called back a touchdown at the very least, even if Carolina got the ball. I just think Carolina is not going to have the firepower to be able to go to Death Valley. I still am hesitant to just give all this credit to Lenora Sellers that he hasn't gained. Now, I think he's got amazing potential, but I have not seen him be consistent enough, even going back to the bowl game or the Clemson game, the last two games of the season. I just don't trust in it. I'm taking LSU to start off 6-0 before hitting the road to Vanderbilt. Now, this is a huge sandwich spot. I think the South Carolina game is going to have a lot of hype, especially given what happened last year. And I think that Texas A&M game, Texas A&M could be a really, really good team. I know they played Notre Dame early in the season. If Texas A&M were to beat Notre Dame, then that game against Vanderbilt is a huge look-ahead spot against Texas A&M. I think that this team in Vanderbilt, the way that their offense runs with a little bit of a triple option sprinkle and creativity with play action pass, you can't overlook them. And I hope LSU knows that, but I'm not confident that they will. I'm taking Vanderbilt to pull off the upset against what will probably be a top 4 or 5 LSU team, maybe even in the conversation for number 1 in the country, going to Nashville to play Vanderbilt. Then they play Texas A&M after a devastating loss. But this was a look-ahead spot. They're going to be prepared for this, but I really think that Texas A&M has the better roster here. And specifically, I trust Mike Elko and that defense more. And as you get late in October, you got to put your faith in coaches. You got to put your faith in these coaches. I'm going to pick Texas A&M to get the job done. That's back-to-back losses for LSU going into the bye week ahead of Alabama. Now, I will say, everybody wants to talk about South Carolina in October. I am sorry, South Carolina fans. I picked you to lose game in October. My bad. All right, off the bye, they play at Alabama. How will this quarterback room for Alabama look at this point in the season on November 8th? You probably will have Ty Simpson as a starter, but maybe, just maybe, he's on a little bit of a short leash, and Keelan Russell could be the guy, and The road team in this series has had a lot of success. I still don't trust it. This Alabama defense is going to be absolutely insane. I think that they have a lot of skill to where it doesn't really matter what's going on at the quarterback position, especially with Ryan Grubb calling the plays. I'm going to take Alabama to win, giving LSU their third straight loss. I think they do bounce back, however, though, against Arkansas. This is back at home. They're going to be desperate for a victory. I think Alabama, it's going to be a close game, and it's not going to be a game that LSU loses, in which we come out of it saying that LSU did not play their best game. I think they're going to get their lick back against Arkansas and then eventually Western Kentucky after that before going on the road to Oklahoma. Another really tough road trip. I mean, think about this road slate in the SEC. Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, who's nobody to sleep on, and that's sandwiched between two big games. Alabama on the road and Oklahoma on the road, who could very well take that leap forward this year with John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle coming in from Washington State. I don't know how to feel about Oklahoma right now because I am very high on them as far as I'm high on the fact that I know they're going to have a really good defense. And I think this offense could elevate because I am a huge fan of Ben Arbuckle. And I do buy into the John Mateer hype. I think he's going to be a really good player. They did lose a little bit at the wide receiver position. They were injured a lot too, but they also bring back a lot, like Deion Burks, for example. That Oklahoma team is tricky to me. And there's only a certain point I can have Oklahoma going and have faith in my prediction. I got LSU pulling out a gutsy road victory. So they're going to finish 9-3 and 5-3 within conference play. So look, I know that's not what LSU fans want to hear. That is not a prediction that's going to make LSU fans very happy. But I think that LSU is a team that, number one, they play a really tough schedule. I mean, I know it's 9 power conference teams, but those 9, very quality. There's not a single game that they could just sleepwalk through in those 9 games. And that game against Vanderbilt is very tricky, but also is the Oklahoma game, also is the Ole Miss game, a couple of games that I gave them. The combinations of this schedule being very tough. I haven't seen it with Brian Kelly yet at LSU, and the fact that the SEC to me is going to level up in 2025. I think those 3 factors is why LSU could very easily be 9-3 this year. I know, again, you guys have national championship expectations this year, and I think they have a roster that is capable to do it. But are they going to be able to take that leap? Comment down below what you think. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video where we're going to do the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.